Previously, he had defeated all the monsters and acquired a skill called Dig, but he wasn't pleased with it. Another door then opened, and his sister, although visibly frustrated with him for not eating, was clearly worried. He eventually came across a boss, only to find that it had no apparent weakness. Now to this week's chapter. The boss took advantage of the situation by launching an attack while Ching was still grappling with the confusing information. But he managed to dodge, noting that, fortunately, being so big meant the boss's speed wasn't impressive. But even though he managed to dodge the attack, he still ended up taking damage. He swore when he realized the damage had come from the shockwave and was furious about how much harm it had caused from such a seemingly minor attack. As he got back to his feet, he thought about how grateful he was for the 300-point shield provided by the armor. If that shockwave had hit his health directly, the pain would have been as severe as being hit by a truck. He was taken aback by the impact of the attack, which left a large hole as the boss pulled his arm away. He looked worried, understanding that the gold-level boss's power meant dodging its foot stomps wouldn't be enough. He fired an arrow to gauge the kind of damage he could inflict. The system's display showed that he had inflicted exactly 1 point of damage. His face was a mix of confusion and frustration as he shouted about only dealing 1 point of damage. He struggled to understand why, when the defense was so much higher than his attack power, it seemed to reduce his damage output to just 1 point. But the monster didn't hesitate. It immediately launched a counterattack. He avoided the attack, realizing that dodging wasn't just a matter of jumping. He needed to use his speed to run, or he would be struck by the shockwave. While he was strategizing, he was caught off guard as the boss launched another attack. He knew he couldn't dodge at such close range, realizing that the distance left him with no time to react. The strike slammed into the ground with immense force, sending a powerful shockwave through the area. Just then, the boss looked confused as it saw a hole from the impact, but Ching was nowhere to be found inside it. At that moment, Ching was visible, gripping the boss's arm with a look of relief on his face, reflecting on how close the encounter had been. Suddenly, the boss began to shake its arm violently as it realized Ching was clinging to it. Unable to hold on, Ching was flung through the air as he screamed. Cursing at the boss, Ching was thrown through the air as the boss roared back, its eyes filled with a deadly fury. He screamed at the boss, asserting that it shouldn't underestimate him, as he prepared to unleash a powerful skill. A bright glow emerged, outlining a figure as he released his 7-star arrow attack. The arrows rained down on the boss, dealing significant damage, far more than before. He landed on the ground with a relieved smile, thinking about how the 7-star linked arrows each dealt 1% of maximum HP as true damage, bypassing armor. As the boss glared down at him in anger, Ching could only think that the most important thing was, the healthier you are, the more it will hurt when you get hit. Being in good shape means the impact will be more painful. The boss, frustrated by the damage taken, started attacking with increased intensity. As Ching did his best to dodge the attacks, he struggled with the shockwaves, which he couldn't avoid. His face reflected the urgency of his effort to dodge the attacks. Anger showed on his face, with a vein popping out on his cheek as he looked at the boss, who seemed to be having fun. He grew furious and charged toward the boss, taking damage as he moved closer to achieving his goal. He reached the top of the boss, positioning himself directly above it. With the boss's health still high, he readied himself and unleashed his skill, 7 arrows, but at that moment, nothing happened. The boss looked up, clearly confused about what was going on. The system display revealed his energy bar, indicating that he didn't have enough to use the skill. With a look of embarrassment, he commented that he didn't have enough energy. As the boss began to move, Ching realized that despite the power of 7-star arrows, his mana cap was insufficient for 2 shots. The 2 mana points he had were from auto-recovery. Given his current mental strength, he would recover about 5 points per minute, meaning he would need to wait at least 4 minutes before he could use the skill again. But his thoughts shifted as he noticed he was approaching the ceiling. He wondered if this thing was trying to make him hit it. He leapt off the top of the boss. As the boss slammed into the ceiling, it created a cloud of dust. He landed on the ground and taunted the boss, thinking that if it really wanted him to hit the ceiling, it would need to speed up at least tenfold. He glanced up and saw an open area in the boss's abdomen. At that moment, the system announced that a weakness had been found. He looked confused, trying to understand what was happening. How could there be a weakness now? The skill began to reskin the boss, clearly identifying and highlighting the newly discovered weakness. The system revealed that the abdomen had been marked as the new weakness. He began to smile as he understood. The weakness had been hidden underneath, making it undetectable earlier. He realized that the boss's maneuver was a deliberate attempt to force him into targeting the newly exposed weakness. But suddenly, the weakness area started behaving oddly, beginning to gather and accumulate energy. The system indicated that the Sand King ultimate was active, with a danger warning. Getting caught would result in 100 damage per second, movement restriction, and 60 seconds of blindness. Ching looked down in confusion as he read the information, his anxiety growing with each line. Fear started to sink in as he fully grasped the implications. The boss's body began to glow with red energy as the skill activated, and two tornadoes emerged, swirling menacingly. But Ching was still trying to understand the system message as the tornadoes descended toward him. He looked as if he had been betrayed, stunned by the realization that, while high damage was already troubling, the extended duration of the skill was an even greater shock. He did his best to withstand the attack, struggling against the overwhelming wind pressure that rendered his legs immobile. The force was so intense that escape seemed impossible. As the attack closed in, he realized it also had control effects. There was nowhere to hide, and taking the full hit would result in 6,000 damage. The attack began to intensify, with the damage increasing as the glow around it grew stronger. As more tornadoes appeared and surrounded Ching, the damage intensified, growing worse with each passing moment as the storm closed in around him. He struggled to comprehend how a boss could have such a powerful skill, feeling as if it was like using a cheat code. In his frustration and disbelief, he screamed that it was outright cheating. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like. It really helps me out.